Welcome back to another episode of RNT Fitness Radio, and today we've got the entire team on the show as we cover some topics we've been itching to record about over the course of the past few months. We start off by talking parenting strategies with the new dads, Mulla and Pilko, with Shaneeta chipping in with sage advice. We then shift gears and talk about individual bucket capacities, something I'll let you hear more about from Kevin later on. After discussing how to prevent your bucket from overflowing, we reveal the latest special Snowflake stories and delve into the best strategies to navigate around the Christmas period. The Christmas chat posed some interesting questions around behaviour, identity, and lifestyle solutions, and why this journey can't ever be anything less than a year to be truly transformative in the long term. We finish up this episode talking about our best tips for starting the new decade the right way. So without further ado, let's dive in.
How's being a dad?
Pretty damn crazy. Romilly was born Tuesday last week. Since then, trying to figure out how to look after a small human being has been challenging. Sleep deprivation has been real. I think we've averaged about 3 hours maximum the first few days. We had one day, I think it was day 3 or 4, where she just decided, I'm not sleeping. So basically getting over actual sleep deprivation. But since then, it's been pretty solid. And one for all the new dads and mums is get yourself a sleepyhead. Basically, it's a mattress. I'm never going to be able to describe it properly to you, but it's like a bubble where they're coned in. And for whatever reason, it works really well because we gave her the sleepyhead thing last night and she slept through for 3 hours and 5 hours, just one wake up. Absolutely buzzing this morning, full of energy and ready for this podcast. It's a game changer for everyone.
Pilko, have you just still got your IKEA double bed?
Again, sorry?
Have you still just got a double bed from IKEA? You need to up your game.
Oh, no. So basically, at first I saw those sleepy heads online. I was like, oh, no, that looks like a rip-off. Debit card straight out, bought one. They are a game changer. Literally, when you were standing there, I was just nodding away, like the difference those sleepyheads are made. Yeah, if you're a new parent, you haven't got one, like that is the one item you need, I'd say.
We'll link in the show notes.
Sure.
Yeah. So Ed, your baby's 1 month old. Oliver's 1 month old. And you mentioned just before we go on air that you've finally locked in some sort of structure, strategy, and systems. What have you been doing for the first month, and then why do you feel today that you've got a handle on everything now?
I think, to be honest, like it's been a crazy month. I mean, looking back at like 4 weeks or whatever, but I can't even really remember like 5 weeks ago now. I'm like, everything has changed so much. But I think, to be honest, it's just getting used to what you can achieve and being realistic with your time. So I think whereas before, you might have been able to nail a big long list of stuff each day, it's just really finding out what you have to do each day and then making sure you're ticking that off. So really nailing down those non-negotiables each day. And it kind of just helps you figure out what is important and what you have to get done each day, because you're not going to be able to get the same amount done with a crying baby that needs feeding and changing and everything on there. But yeah, still getting better, but still definitely learning for sure.
You got the dad bod yet?
It's on its way.
How's the training going? Have you managed to keep it up?
No, it's good actually. I mean, I don't think I've told you guys yet. Actually, I started just before he came. I just started like a little mini cut to try and clean things up a bit. And then about a week ago, I just contacted a local guy photographer and just booked in a shoot for 3 weeks. 3 weeks now. Just because it was coming off, and I just thought, let's just just go with it. And it's actually, I think, maybe been part of what's kind of brought that routine in as well, because it's meant I've had to be more focused with my time. I'm really just nailed everything down and focused on it. I think also actually having had so many clients who come to you after years of just neglecting themselves, it was something that I was really conscious of when I became a parent, thinking like, I don't want to get to the point where my kids hit like 15, 18, whatever, and then suddenly I'm looking at myself. So, obviously Oliver's the priority, but making sure that me and my wife still have a life, still obviously looking after ourselves. Obviously we need to look at ourselves before, we can be the best parents we can be, for sure.
Oh, Ed's dropping the fire today. You must be the first new parent to book a shoot as soon as the baby's born.
I was kind of like in my head wondering. I was like, oh, should I, shouldn't I? And then it was like, I was sitting with my wife. I was like, just kind of threw it out there a little bit. And then she was just kind of like supportive with it, which obviously, is a massive help for it. But I just thought, you know what, let's crank up the accountability and just, make sure, and also if you flip on its head, you've got so much more going on. But at the same time, if you've got limited time, you need to be, on it with your meals, on it with your steps, on it with your training. Routine needs to be, even more nailed in. And, your social life isn't going to be as crazy that first month or two. Like, if anything, it's a time when your life is going to be rigid and restricted. So why not make the most of that kind of thinking?
My only question for you is the baby coming to the shoot as well?
It is, yeah. I'm already planning a little father-son shot.
Oh. What's all these macros?
I'm just trying to find someone who can give him a spray tan.
Yeah. The baby formula. Free bed. Baby.
Bad bod in the best way possible. Ben, what's your excuse then?
I haven't got any excuses. I don't know. There's a few people who've seen a post I put up yesterday in the Facebook group and just saying what my plan for it was. I'm doing all I can to avoid the dad bod. I'm not doing a photo shoot, but my take on it is training 3 times a week, making everything non-negotiable, following a structure that I've always followed for my nutrition. And so far, my weight is maintained. And that is what I will look to do for the rest of 2019. And then we can consider a cut maybe next year.
Awesome. So, Shaneeta, what advice are you going to give Ed and Ben here?
Well, I think it's quite different being a new dad to a new mum. Keeping it real, as a new mum, you can't go to the gym within the first couple of weeks. And also if you're breastfeeding, you shouldn't really be thinking about counting calories and worrying about macros and things like that. So that's kind of the bigger picture. But definitely for new mums out there, they can go out for walks. Doesn't matter what the weather is. Wrap the baby up warm, wrap yourselves up warm, get your steps in. Definitely. And I think what the problem is, and it happens when you're pregnant as well, that you think, oh, I'm pregnant, I can eat whatever I want, or I've just had a baby, I can eat whatever I want. And you need to think about, no, that's really not going to help. If you're going to stay eating junk food, crisps and chocolates, number one, you're going to feel rubbish and you're going to probably act like a psycho mum like I did when I had the babies. And number two, it's not really healthy, is it? And you're not going to be kind of full of energy and strive that you should be when you have a new child. I remember very clearly after I think a month, I was lucky not to have a C-section, and I was like, I need to do something more than walking, and I didn't have any childcare. And I was talking to one of my clients about this yesterday actually, and I was saying I remember dropping my older son at nursery, coming home, leaving my baby in the car seat whilst he was sleeping, and quickly putting on a YouTube video, just something 20 minutes that I could just quickly fit in so I could do a workout. And it's not just about physically I'm burning some calories, it was me just mentally getting into it, because I knew that as a child would get older, I'd have a bit more time and I'd be able to fit it in. And I completely agree with what Ed said. It's your non-negotiables. You've got to see what you can fit in. And the problem, no, I shouldn't say the problem with having a baby, but the beauty with having a baby is that things change every day. You can't control what time you're going to do anything the next day. So why not get the key things that you need to nail done as soon as possible, and then you can relax for the rest of the day as well. So that's a bit of advice I would give you guys as well. But you guys are looking fresh though. Lucky you. I never looked like that when I had the baby. So whatever you're doing, you must be doing something good.
You didn't have the sleepy head, did you?
No. Okay, now you're giving away how old I am, because I don't think it really was invented then. So, yeah. No, I didn't. I slept with my child in bed. Judge me, I don't care. I slept with them. I had my cuddles, because now I don't get any.
So, Shaneeta, not speaking to Ben and Ed here, but for new mums, how active should they be in the early phase? Because you often hear, you need to rest at home. Is that true? Or to what extent should you be resting, and what extent can you be active?
Okay, I don't think I can give a general answer, because everyone's birth is so different. But say for someone who, touch wood like me, who kind of had a normal delivery, there is no reason why you should not be up and about, walking around, which I'm sure Ben and Ed, your other halves, are doing the same thing. Walking even around the house if you don't want to take the baby out with you because it hasn't had its jabs or things like that. You've got the baby Bjorn with you. You shouldn't be lying on the sofa kind of making people do things for you. There's no point. You have to be independent. And actually, do you know what? For those new mums out there, the quicker you get into it physically, the stronger you will be mentally because you're not depending on anyone. So I found that was key for me, was that I just like, I'll do everything. I'll do the cooking, I'll do the drop-offs, and then I ended up being stronger quicker, and therefore I was able to go to the gym quicker. I could deal with things quicker. So I think for any new mum who has had a relatively normal birth, they've got to go with the mindset then, look all around the world. People have children. People get up the next day and just carry on doing things. So it's kind of, you got to just keep it real.
Yeah, really good advice. And just leading on from that, how important is it that you focus on fitness and strength in the lead up to your pregnancy?
Massively. You've got to be, when you are pregnant, there's no excuse. You can go to the gym when you're pregnant, of course, get advice on how to exercise and things like that. And in terms of your diet is key when you are pregnant, because as Ben and Ed can see, and all the new parents out there, even not new parents, any parents, I was up a lot last night, my son's not well. You have to have the energy, you have to have the strength to deal with that. And I think for those clients who are kind of in this journey, you notice that it's not just the physical strength, it's the mental strength as well, and it's just interlinked. So that's why you have to nail it. From the minute you find yourself pregnant, you're not just thinking about yourself, you're thinking about being strong for your family around you. And that to me is why is key. It's key in this whole thing.
Brilliant. Ben and Ed, what sort of regimes did you put your wives under in the lead up to the pregnancy? Did you have any plans, or did you just let them find their own flow?
Regime.
What is that?
Maybe I
know Ben's missus. She had him under a regime.
Completely wrong, but you know what I mean.
No, we had a pretty good plan. I was when she became pregnant, I was still PT-ing, so she was coming down. I was training her 3 times a week, which I guess the luxury not all couples have, but. She resistance trained with me 3 times a week up until I think, so I would train her up until I think it was like 5 days before the birth. I obviously controlled everything pretty well in the gym, but she was making progress. She was PB, and she was like I'd say the last 2 weeks we started to pull things back a bit, but she was hitting like all-time PBs at that point. So I don't think you can need to completely lay off by any means. And she made good progress. She actually recomped pretty well during it, I think, because it was that kind of kick up the arse to really get diet in line, and was just being more conscious and strict with herself. So she was following all of the guidelines in terms of she wasn't on some crazy diet trying to drop weight. But no, she did really well, and it was actually that kick up the arse to kind of really tighten everything up.
Yeah, Ed's got his wife recomping during a pregnancy, and then he's
I'll tell you one thing, my wife definitely wasn't recomping during the pregnancy, but at the same time, she wasn't taking the piss like what Shaneeta was saying. A lot of it was to do with just like managing food, making sure whatever she was eating was very high in nutrient density, still keeping some kind of level of protein at each meal, and just keeping things healthy. Because as you get deeper and deeper into pregnancy, you just generally move less, you feel more lethargic, you're heavier. So I don't think it's obviously going to be the same for everyone, but you've got to take control of the variables that you can take control of. So for her, it was just staying on top of nutrition. And then now, once the recovery process is done with, we'll probably focus on getting some level of activity back in, or training, or whatever it may be.
Yeah, it sounds sensible. Anything to add to that, Shaneeta?
No, I think taking from what Ben said, I think for any pregnant person or any new mum, you have to listen to your body and see what you should do. And you shouldn't get, also the other thing I get really wound up about are these social influencers. You shouldn't look at them and think, oh, they're in the gym, they're doing this, let me copy those videos. Oh, look, they've just had a baby a week ago and look how good they look. And look at me. And that's where that downward spiral can really affect your mood. And that's again where you may give into your kind of temptations and bad habits and things may come back. You need to look at yourself and see what your own goals are and think and just listen to your body, listen to your mind and body, especially if you just have a new baby, and get as much help as you can.
Yeah, I mean, just letting all those outside influences come in, it's just only going to increase your stress levels, which it's going to make you feel worse mentally, physically, and emotionally. And that can lead down the downward spiral you often hear about post-pregnancy, right?
Exactly. And each day is different. Each hour is different. You know, it depends on how much sleep you had, whether the baby's eaten. Your mood is absolutely dependent by another little human being. So it's quite unsettling for that to be out of your control. So what I really enjoyed as well was having things in my control. For example, the food and how much I was walking, what exercise I could get in. And that's, again, another key thing in this whole journey as well.
So Ed Pimley, are you taking notes here?
Yeah, I've got it all written down right now. But we've been pretty smooth so far. Like, Sam's been pretty good with hitting her workouts and everything so far. Like, she's had no issues. So it's been pretty easy for us. And ours is due December 23rd. So we're getting towards that end game right now.
Christmas baby.
Oh,
Let
yeah.
me tell you one thing about babies and arrival dates. They don't ever pan out.
That's what I've heard, eh?
Mine arrived 15 days late.
15?
Yeah, 15. So it was way too cozy and nice in there. The nutrient-dense food. The baby was just like, I'm chilling. I'm not coming out. I'm happy in here. So don't think it's going to be Christmas. It might be in the new year. You never know.
Yeah, we're definitely hoping for a little bit of a late one, so it's not during Christmas time.
Yeah.
Yeah, just timed the haircut really badly, didn't you?
Oh, man, I timed it like 2 or 3 days before, thinking baby pictures and everything. This is going to be great, looking fresh. And a week later, my hair starts growing back. I'm like, damn, you have to go back in again before the baby's out.
Brilliant. So we touched on a little bit about stress there, which segues nicely into the next topic of the discussion today. We've actually got the whole team on the call today. It's the biggest podcast we've done. We've got all 11 of us on the podcast, with a few making their debuts as well. So big shout out to Ed Pibley, Pooja, Kevin, Shaneeta, whose episodes might have come out before this actually. So I'm not sure if he'll be a debut by then. But we've got the whole team on today, and we're going to be discussing everything from bucket capacities, the status of snowflakes, how to navigate around Christmas, and questioning whether you're ready for a transformation in 2020. So let's kick it off by talking about bucket capacity. Now, this is a term that I'm not too familiar with, but Kevin has coined this term of bucket capacity, and he's gonna let me talk about it now. So over to you, Kevin. Tell us what the bucket capacity is and how we manage our buckets.
I love that this is possibly my debut on the podcast. Talking about bucket capacity. But I'll try not to bring too much comedy to this. So, as we go through a transformation process, as coaches, basically we deal with clients' stresses.
Kevin, you go in the clean version right now.
Yeah, I'll give it with the PG version.
All right, okay.
People might be listening to this with their kids in the kitchen, but we'll delve in a little bit deeper. So as coaches, we deal with a lot of stresses for clients, and every client is very different. So we've kind of coined this term about looking at your overall stress capacity and how much you can deal with. And if we look at it in the analogy of your maximum stress capacity is the amount of water that's stress that you can deal with. So much water that you can hold within your bucket before we overflow, overcook it, and end up with a mess. So it's about managing the flow of the stresses in your day and in your life so that we can essentially have that bucket at optimal level and not end up with a mess.
What you're saying is we need a free-flowing bucket.
A bucket with a hole in it.
How do we empty our buckets, Kev?
Well, that depends on your own personal preference, doesn't it, really? No, to be fair. I'm trying to keep this clean, lads. But yeah, no,
it's all good. We got the E sign next to our episode, so
are we good for this? Yeah, so we can tear the bucket up then.
Can we just give context to why we're all like absolutely in shit? So we did a team meeting on this recently about stress, and it just basically turned into talking about buckets, and that's why we're all trying to compose ourselves.
So yeah, going back to how you can empty the bucket. There's so many ways for this, and a lot of the time actually it goes back to looking at why there's so much water going in the first place, or so much stress coming in, because everyone's way of dealing with stress is individual, and everybody's stress tolerance is individual as well. So the means in which we deal with that has to be tailored to the person as well. So, for one person, going for a walk can be what allows them to de-stress, and for other people it has to be looking at managing the problem at the root as well. So I want to open this one up to the floor and see what the main kind of stresses that we're seeing with clients are, and how we're dealing with those as well.
So before we go into that, why don't we discuss what the signs of an overflowing bucket would be?
Severe spillage.
Yeah, go.
a wet floor.
Go
on, Ben, and then we'll go back to Elliot.
Well, the signs that you're massively stressed are things like your recovery really being hampered. So it's going to be done in many ways. That could be like just generally feeling exhausted, lethargic, like your mood's dipping, your motivation's not there. Those are the key ones I'd look for.
Yeah, I think the main one is overwhelm as well, and then everything that comes off of that. So usually sleep takes a big hit when we're overflowed with stress. And then obviously our ability to handle just the small day-to-day things, everything becomes increasingly difficult. And essentially it's just, you lose a lot of control because everything seems to be, under control. And then the more that gets added to your bucket, and then eventually if you get to that point of overflow, everything just seems out of control and a lot less manageable to handle.
Yeah, you just become a lot more snappy with people. You notice that your training performance also goes down. So this is where it's really important to keep track of your numbers. As the other boys are saying, your sleep. I think sleep is going to be the biggest one that shows whether your bucket is overflowing or not. If your sleep is broken, even though you're super tired but you cannot sleep, that is probably a big sign that you need to de-stress and you need to really empty that bucket.
I agree. For me, as someone that's dealt with stress for a long, long time, I always felt like I'm not in control of my day. And that goes for any good things or bad things. So whether it's a normal day at work, I always felt like it was out of control. Sleep goes completely, and then your mood goes as well. So that led me personally to look at food as a comfort. So there is a pattern here. If you're not in control, it leads to so many things. For me, it was weight gain, hence why I ended up joining RNT, because I needed to have that control again. But stress is, I think, the tip that leads you to have the lack of control and the lack of decision making, and conviction in your decisions as well, which needed to change for me. I'm much more in control now. I'm not there completely, but yeah, it is the stress factor that does it to you.
And sometimes it's not just the tip that goes in your bucket that's the issue. It's the fact is that every single drop of water that goes in the bucket is accumulating over time, and actually it's not really the actual thing. It's more so the total amount. From a perspective, it's like if you're overflowing, it's generally not the overflowing issue that's the primary issue. It's the fact that either you can't release your bucket, or you can't take away the water that's in it, or you can't expand your bucket over time. So the thing that you probably need to look at is ways to either filter how much is coming in your bucket or how much is getting out of your bucket. So let's go through like tips to help go through the bucket mechanism and bucket management.
I think it's quite important I think we're going right down this rabbit hole with the word bucket, aren't we? Keeping in line with this, I think it's quite important to note that your bucket can increase in size over time as well. You can buy a bigger bucket, so to speak. Because even just speaking from a personal point of view, and not with clients when they overcome things, the amount of volume of work that I can now deal with and still comfortably maintain a social life and still comfortably maintain a good relationship is much, much higher than it was when I was, in high school, when I was in uni. And the same with training volume as well. The amount of training volume that I can handle over the course of the week is much higher than what it was when I started training. So your stress capacity does increase. It's a trainable ability. But it's just about making sure that you know that you're where your own limit is and not to redline it so much. So yeah, I think that's just an important thing to note, that even without managing it, your capacity to deal with it still can increase over time. It's just when we get these sudden spikes that it becomes more of an issue.
Yeah, there's definitely a progressive overload element to it, in that what you found stressful now, what you found stressful then isn't stressful now. And your problems only get bigger, but you just get better at dealing with them. So definitely experience that in all aspects of life. So that's a good point, Kevin. So Pimley, what sort of stress management strategies are you using, especially so with regards to increasing the bucket size, upgrading the bucket? What's your best tips here?
For me, it's definitely figuring out my schedule. So looking at exactly how much I have on and then exactly how I can fit it in. And then allowing myself like my own downtime where I'm lucky enough to have a giant dog that I can take for a quick walk around that really kind of calms me down and takes me out of that big stressed out state that I typically find myself in with a lot of workload. But honestly, just having that set schedule and kind of forcing myself to stick to it has been one of the biggest factors for my own personal stress.
Yeah, and Pilko, I can imagine you've noticed a big spike in your stress levels just from the changes in your life. Like, what have you been doing to mitigate this, if anything?
So definitely had increased stress over the last month or so. But I think a massive one is just how you're perceiving it as well. So like Kevin said, you are going to get better at managing it, but it's also how you're viewing this stress is going to have a big impact as to whether that stress comes into your bucket, as drips or as just a massive dump of water. So for example, you get onto a new meal plan, you can either look at it as, oh my God, how am I going to do this? There's so much prep, there's so much weighing and all this. Otherwise, you can look at it and think, you know what, this is a plan that's going to get me moving towards my goal. It's going to improve my health. This is everything it's going to get me where I wanted to go for so long. And if you look at the physical thing, you're in exactly the same position, but how you're looking at it will dictate massively kind of the stress and or the load within your bucket that's going to give you. So I think perception massively is a big one. For me personally, it's really similar to what Ed just said in terms of just getting with the structure of your day. So I used to do a to-do list a lot, and that's massive for me. Once I know everything's written down, I've kind of planned everything out. You can see it's possible, and for me, that's a massive game changer for me.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's more following on from what Ed said. I definitely have to make a to-do list every night and prioritize exactly what I need to get done. Because as mentioned before, sometimes you're not going to be able to get everything done, but that's why I get the important things done first. But one thing that I find when I've gone through stressful times, which there have been quite a few, and I have mentioned it before, is talking to people, maybe your family, people who are doing an RNT journey. Talk to your coach, because what you've actually seen is the more that you talk, the more information you're giving other people, and the more that they can help you. And that can happen in all aspects of your life, from this transformation to losing someone in your family, like what I've gone through. So the way I do deal with it is I do ask for help. I do take on the advice and try and incorporate that into my day to day. That's my way.
My one's very similar to Pilko's. I think I used to hear about team meetings a couple of months ago, talking about that to-do list and that checklist. 5 important things that you need to get done during the day. Like we do that. Me and Nate, we do that. We're like, okay, cool. We've got a game tonight. This is what we're going to get done. This is our priority. And once we get that done, we can actually enjoy the game. Otherwise, what we do is when we get to the game, we're still stressed about what we didn't do. So I think having that priority list is super important. Also, I think, scheduling like your me time is super important. Things that you really, really enjoy. Like for me, is obviously sports, hence why I'm here with Nate on a sports trip. So either sports, podcasts, learning a new language. Like Nate every morning here is learning Spanish for an hour. I'm here reading a book. So it's like before we even get into work, we've got some sort of our me time. Whether it's learning something different, something new. I think is very, very important as well. And I think it will de-stress you.
For me, it's the accountability, going on from what Shaneeta has said about talking to people. Accountability to my coach every week has helped me kind of keep on track, especially with this transformation as well. Just knowing that someone's waiting at the end of the week to hear about your week, for you to be completely honest with them, to say what worked, what didn't work, what I did, what I didn't do, kind of has kept me in check. But what that has also led me to do is kind of have a conversation with myself before I send my check-in to say, did I achieve everything I needed to? No, why not? What happened? And I actually dread my check-ins because I think, there is an accountability and an honesty measure here to make sure that I am following a structure. Through all these check-ins that I've done so far, stress has been dealt with in a way that I've never dealt with before. So for me, the transformation hasn't been just this weight loss that I've gone through. I've dealt with something that I've had to tackle my entire life and not known how to deal with, just by this accountability measure.
Going off what Ed said as well, I think a lot of it comes down to your own terminology. So he was very much saying about perception. I find that the people who tell you in their check-ins, or even the people you hear in your family, your friends, who tell you that they're stressed all the time or they're busy all the time, and they kind of create this self-fulfilling prophecy where they are stressed all the time because they genuinely believe that they are. Whereas once you start to address that terminology, especially if you're getting that from a client, you're seeing it in an email and you're like writing it down in black and white and kind of unpacking that stress as well, and then reframing the way you're looking at it. So what are you stressed about? And then finding out what exactly that is. And then almost looking at what you can do about it and just changing your relationship to that stress. So as opposed to saying, this, like Ed said with the meal plan, it's like, okay, I can let this overwhelm me, or I can see this as something I can grow from and overcome and then become stronger as a byproduct. Then all of a sudden it's not so much anymore. So I think it's about unpacking it massively as well. So looking at it, questioning it, unpacking it, and then changing your terminology around it. And also, to go off what K-Mac said as well, it's also about knowing what grounds you and what that me time is, because a lot of people don't have these things that they enjoy. They don't know what it is that grounds them, gives them that peace, gives them that headspace. So it's about finding what that is and then just making sure that you prioritize that time.
For me, it's just tagging on what Elliot said. All these things that we've all mentioned are great, but ultimately, what is the actual reason and goal of what you're doing? If you're super clear on it, these stresses can easily be flipped in your head from something that you perceive to be really, really hard and difficult to something that's actually making things a lot easier for you to get to your end goal. So once you're clear on that, you've got the clarity, then everything else becomes simpler. There's always a strategy that you can find to move around nutrition, your training, activity that will work. So it's just a question of being clear.
Yeah, for me, obviously it's going to be exercise. I also do like to combine exercise with learning. So similar to like what K-Mac and Nath are doing, like Nath's learning a language, K-Mac's, reading a book. I love to just, either exercise on the bike or go for a walk, always have some sort of audio book playing, or again, using that time to actually be learning and leveraging. I personally find walking to be one of the greatest stress relievers you can possibly have. And there's a lot of research behind that too. So that's definitely one of my go-tos. But yeah, in regards to how you handle stress, obviously the biggest things that we hear a lot in our check-ins are people sort of going for food to help resolve their issue. And the biggest thing that people sort of need to realize is that if hunger isn't causing the issue, food is not really going to fix it. Okay, so you can stuff as many chocolates down your face within 20 to 30 minutes, but you still have to deal with Karen the next day at work who is doing your own head in. Okay, so just know that food is never ever going to resolve the issue, because the issue is not usually going to be hunger related unless you're like starving to death. So that's my take on that.
Poor Karen.
Yeah. Poor Karen.
Karen's not gonna be happy with this. I think this is a big one as well. It's like being individual about how you deal with things. Like for me personally, like if I'm dealing with, the stress can be two different things coming in, but the way in which I want to deal with it can be two different outcomes as well. So if I need to work something out in my head, I know personally I do very well with going for a long drive. That's a good means for me to just get in my own headspace with no distractions and work things out. And then equally, it can be something that I'm stressing, and I know I'm stressing over nothing, that nothing needs fixed, and I just need to quiet my own head. And for me, taking a bit of time out of my day to draw works for me, because I can't think of something else whilst I'm doing that, and it's a creative piece and it settles my mind. So I think knowing yourself can be quite a big thing here, which is, it's no easy task, I suppose, but definitely worth exploring.
Yeah, and I think recognizing that stress is a flow state. So you need stress to create drive, but you also need to know how to manage it. So just understanding that it will come and it will also go. But then on the back end of that, just making sure that you know how to really alleviate your stress. Have you tried all of the strategies that these guys are speaking about? Have you journaled? Have you exercised? Have you talked to someone? Have you been for a walk? Have you done all these different types of things to kind of mitigate that increase in stress so that you come back down to baseline? A lot of people will just go up and stay up and then not come back down. So understand that it's a flow. You will get through whatever's happening, but obviously you can make it better quicker by utilizing the tools available to us.
And if you're chronically on a high and you don't see a flow in your stress levels, what would you advise someone to do? Is there something that they need to look deeper into? Is there something that, like Yvonne said, that there's a deeper cause issue, that it's not just the perceived level of stress in the moment, but there's something underlying at the core that needs to be dealt with?
It'll either be like environmental, a situation or a person or a place that you go to that causes the same reaction. You probably want to accept or kind of find a way to deal with that environment separately, probably through help. And then obviously you've got, if it's to do with a scenario previous in your like deep-rooted issues, then obviously that's the job of someone like who we talk about often, which is Sharon, who helps us unpack those things and neutralize them, and as well as Mamit, who obviously pretty well. They're all really good at getting to that deep-rooted issues and helping you neutralize them, and then you can then work backwards from that with the help of them, because the deep-rooted stuff is not always apparent, and it's not always something that you can unpack yourself. You can just see the spearhead at the top or the tip, and which may be food, which may be you saying nasty things to someone, or you getting really emotional when overwhelm comes. You can just see that tip, but actually the rest of the stuff is stuff that you need to go and see someone about.
How much would you say that when people are getting out of shape or gaining a lot of weight, how much of it is it to do with psychological issues or stress related problems?
I personally think there's always a tone underneath. There's always something. No one chooses to let themselves go by their own free will. Everyone knows what healthy food is. Everyone kind of knows. No one just eats 15 Mars bars a day because they like Mars bars. There's always a reason why they're at the Mars bar in the first place. And then the second one, and then the third one, whether it's fear of like inadequacy or not being enough, or stuff that's unpacked from their childhood or stuff like that. There are lots and lots of things that could be going on that forces them to, or encourages them to feed that appeasement through food.
Like fill a void, is that what you mean?
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I mean, just following on from what I think it was Kevin talking about flow, or being or doing things that are in your flow. And for me, when I feel the least stress and just most calm is when I don't overcommit myself to things, and only book say 60-70% of my diary, as opposed to trying to ram the whole week out all the time. So only not overcommitting, but also not putting things in my diary that I'm tempted to move. So I've noticed this trend now where I'll have certain things in my diary that I'm always moving forward. And I realize that those are the things I just don't want to do, but I just keep moving them forward. And sometimes I need to do them, sometimes I don't need to do them. But either way, when it comes to that task, it creates stress around it because it's just not in my flow. And that whole moving of the calendar thing, because now I'm aware of it, I try and keep my calendar as much towards what I want to do in a day. And that, combined with just not keeping it too cluttered, has just allowed me to stay way more stress-free.
That's actually really similar to something I was reading from Tim Ferriss. I think he has this rule actually, which is if it's not a definite yes, then it's a no. And I think you can actually apply that just to day-to-day life really well. How often you finish work or whatever, and then someone asks if you want to go for drinks afterwards or something like that, and you're not that excited, but you kind of just say it just to keep the peace, or just because that's what you do. But I think just looking at all those kind of decisions as well in terms of like filling your diary, and if it's not something you really want to do, then not doing it, and because ultimately that time you're spending doing something you're not that bothered by is replacing time that you can put towards either your transformation or spending time with your family and things that you do really want to be doing.
Yeah, I tell you what right now I'm writing the book, and Pooja can attest to this, in that I've still struggled in recent weeks to say no to other things when I don't even have the mental capacity to deal with it because of how much the book is taking with regards to headspace. So I'll still say yes to things, and then I'll end up redlining or getting close to redlining again. And then I look at it and I just look at my diary or what things I'm saying yes to. And I'm like, there's things in here that, firstly, like you said, aren't absolute yeses. And secondly, I'm not considering the mental drain of one other thing I'm doing. So, we all have a limited amount. If we go back to the bucket analogy, there's only a limited amount, and certain things can take up way more capacity in that bucket than other things. Even if the time itself isn't that much, it can just weigh on you. So for what I'm trying to do myself is just manage that mental load that each unit has and not overcook it on that end.
I think what's interesting is that we see a lot of it and people come to their capacity is because it's not that we put a lot of stress. And I think most people, they operate right at the brim, right? So they go through life right at the brim. And it's only when like perhaps a family death or a relationship issue comes on top do they overflow. And what we do as coaches is we put a form of stress in their buckets through the form of training, through the form of nutrition. And although that's good stress, they're so filled to the top with all the other things in their life or the way they're dealing with things, that the reason why we see it a lot with people who are struggling to stick to their training plan, nutrition plan, is we put the stress in. It's almost like coming back to the whole, even though it's good stress, it's kind of like good calories and bad calories. It doesn't matter how many calories you're going to put in, whether they're good or not, you're still going to gain weight if you're in a surplus. So it's the same thing with stress as well, is that people are not aware of their capacity, don't know how close they're riding to full, and all of a sudden we put in the training stress, we put in the nutrition stress, and that's where we tend to see people overflow, when in reality we kind of just need to replace the ratio from the good stress, alleviate some of the stresses that we don't need in our life, and like you said, removing those things from your diary that you don't actually want to do and allowing those good stresses to be in, and then just be flowing just beneath your capacity.
And that comes back to the overwhelm that you might feel when you begin a journey like this. You've got all that stress in your life already, and then you're just starting a journey. But even though it's good stress, it can create a sense of overwhelm, which can then tip you over and think you're not doing the right thing. When in reality, you are doing the right thing. You just need to spring clean all the bad stresses out of your life in order to make way for the good stresses, which are going to bring you forward and improve your life.
Absolutely. I heard a really good quote as well. I think it was actually on a Jay Shetty podcast where he said, it's not the load that breaks you down, it's the way that you carry it. And I really like that. So I think that closes this one off quite nicely.
It's good you credited him.
Yeah, of course. Had to. I couldn't coin that one myself. I would like to, but
I'm just for that completely.
Yeah. Brilliant. Is that it? I think we've covered and stressed out the whole bucket capacity there. No pun intended.
The bucket stretched.
What was that?
Your bucket stretched.
Stretched. And speaking of buckets, there's also a case of snowflakes. So not only do we have a lot of overstretched buckets, but we also, we deal with a lot of snowflakes. And we've covered this in a previous podcast before. But for the sake of any new listeners, anyone who hasn't listened to this, Who'd like to give a definition of what a snowflake is?
Ben.
It's not even December yet. We don't even get snow here.
This one's going to go out at the end of November, so there will be some snowflakes coming around. Go on, Ben. Tell us what a snowflake is.
A snowflake, otherwise defined as one who finds excuses in places that are not required, basically. Snowflake is somebody who finds that their bucket is quickly overfilled and they can't manage the small tasks they need to do to get the results that they want. We've heard quite a few, let's just say as it is, we've heard a few excuses already, things like the change of weather, the season changing, and things that are stopping people achieving their goals. And this is where we coined the term snowflakes. So I'll let the guys chime in on what they think.
Yeah, I mean, my favorite snowflake excuse right now is not being able to hit my step target because it's too cold, or because there's rain outside, or because it's too dark. So those are my top three, all related to steps, really. Anyone else?
And you had a solution for all of them, didn't you?
Yeah, I mean, my favorite solution right now is finish all your steps before the sun goes down. That'll solve a lot of issues.
The umbrella solution.
What's some of so let's talk steps then. You know, while we're on the topic of steps, if we're speaking about the busy person who's strapped for time, struggling for their steps, what are we going to tell them?
Walk faster? No, I'm joking.
Run.
No, to be fair, it's just about sneaking it in. So it's habit stacking is quite a big one here. So, you know, if you're stuck for time, it could be a case of pre-looking at your week and saying, right, okay, where can I steal 5 minutes? If I can't steal 5 minutes, then I need to figure out how I can change a specific habit. So if you're, back-to-back meetings with work, let's see if we can stack one of them as a walking meeting. If you're meeting up with a colleague in work and it's not a specific formal meeting, like let's make sure that we're meeting up and we're walking to the coffee shop. Just actually stacking up habits that are in your day because you don't have extra time, to then make sure that they coincide with getting steps in.
Yeah. Once you've explored the schedule side of things, like obviously the obvious, like waking up an hour early. If you're waking up at 7 and you want to get more steps in or want more time in the day, obviously there's an hour or at least an hour and a half that you could wake up beforehand and get your steps in. Just a sacrifice for your end goal at the end of the day is if this goal is meaningful for you, then waking up at 6 or 5:30 shouldn't really be an issue if you've got the time capacity to do so. And later on at night as well, if you're going to bed at 9:30 or 10 o'clock, there's obviously potentially another extra hour there, and you could still get 6 or 7 hours sleep, as much as you needed if you were more efficient. So once you've explored the schedule side of things, then it's just basic stuff during the day. It's like, can you tag on 5-10 minutes after your workout on the treadmill? Can you walk the stairs? Keep walking as opposed to standing on an escalator. There's stuff like that. Standing desks, treadmill desks. All of the above would be decent. And then if all else fails, just go to the gym and do steps on a treadmill.
You know what's always interesting is, when you've got like a big deadline, like a photo shoot, or you're going through like the grind and you're really having to push the limit with the step count, there's always a way to get it done, right? You've not suddenly changed your lifestyle. You've got the same job, you've got the same family, you've got the same social life, but you find a way to get, say, 15, 20,000 steps in, no problem. And then all of a sudden, like say the photo shoot's over, then you're suddenly wondering, how do I get my steps in the day? Or how do I stay active? And you just got, if you've done, this is for people that have done a photo shoot or done a position where they've reached a transformation checkpoint. You just got to go back to using the systems that you were doing before. And if you haven't got to that checkpoint, you just need to think, you just need to be more ruthless with your time. And it comes back to looking at that schedule again and looking at your calendar and seeing what you're saying yes and no to. And there's probably so many ways you could just chop an extra half an hour there or increase the efficiency of what you're doing to allow that extra time for an extra 2,000-3,000 steps, which over the course of the day is going to add up to a ton. And what you'll find is at the beginning, 6,000 to 8,000 feels like a lot. But once you get there and you build a structure and system around it, then you can add an extra 2,000. Then use that confidence that you gain from doing 10,000 to then do 12,000, and just let those small wins accumulate. And as your confidence increases, you'll find more and more ways to add steps into your day. And then all of a sudden, it's no longer an excuse, and the snowflake melts.
And some of it, I think, also is not always looking for these hacks and tricks. It's just getting it done. You know, like before you started the diet, if it rained and you needed to go outside, you'd put a coat on or you'd put an umbrella up and you'd go outside, you know.
Perfect.
You know, you don't like walking in the dark.
Ed is taking no shit today.
No, I just think, you know, like most people don't live on a farm. You know, we've all got street lights. It's all nice going for a country walk. But if you've got steps to do, you know, you would have done, you know, if you had to go out and get some milk 3 months ago and it was raining, you'd put an umbrella up and go and get it. You know, nothing's really changed.
We just found the quote on there.
That quote, most people live on a street with streetlights. That is gold. I am using that. You've got streetlights. Get out. I'm not asking you to do back alleys.
But yeah, no, I think some of it is just accepting you just got to get it done and then just getting on with it as well, to be honest. You know, there are all these hacks, but to a point, it's remembering that why and then getting on with the plan.
I think another one is sometimes just asking yourself the question about what you're saying. If you say to somebody, I can't get 5,000 steps in, just look at yourself in the mirror and realize what you're saying. Are you really telling me you can't do 5,000 steps? Where is your day gone? And then I think once you've said that and had that conversation with yourself, you go, yeah, maybe I can do a bit more. This is not really pushing me to my limits.
Yeah, that old mirror chat, increasing that level of self-accountability.
That one.
Yeah. Anyone else? Any snowflake scenarios they're coming up with?
Like a lot of my clients, including myself, have got the whole half term. It's half term. I can't get my steps in. I've got the kids. There are so many things that you can do with your kids to get your steps in. Literally ranging from, if you're going to take them to the theatre, well, get the train, use the same strategy, structure, systems you've had in place in your journey by getting off a step before. Get off the step before with the children. Make it fun for them. Things like, can you see a red bus? Can you see a black taxi? It's good for the children as well. It's do activities that are more active for your kids over the half terms and the holidays. So I think what I'm seeing a lot, and probably what I used to be like, is over half term, it's people are using it as an excuse not to get their steps in. And really, there are lots you can do. Plan your day properly.
Yeah, not just half term. You know, we've got Christmas holidays coming up, which segues nicely into the next part of the podcast, where we're going to be discussing Christmas tips and staying in shape during Christmas, and whether that should even be a question. What do we got to say about that?
I mean, this is where you probably need the coach the most. You need the accountability, especially with like the amount of parties you'll have, the amount of socials you'll have as well. It's like, okay, do you want to think about it, or do you want someone else to think about it? And I think most people want a coach to say, okay, what should I go for here? What else do I need to do? Do I need to do extra steps? Do I need extra cardio? And I think, this is where you probably need the coach the most as well.
Yeah, I would second that. This time of the year with these distractions, or potential distractions, saying that you need the coach the most. One of the things as a coach we don't want to see is, it gets to Monday and you check in and tell us all the things you did wrong. Ideally, what you want to do is flip that switch and start to be more proactive rather than reactive and say, right, okay, I'm going to learn from this mistake. I want you to ask me in advance of the check-in, I've got this social coming up. How do I navigate it? So just having a more proactive mindset to these type of things and having a plan and a strategy in place for going into them is going to be a huge thing for you.
Yeah, finding your sacrifice to freedom ratio. If you've got 15 events in December, more than likely, if you want to maintain your weight or even drop weight, you're going to have to say no to quite a few of them in terms of being engulfed in the culture of the festivities. So, probably 13 out of 15 of them, you may not be able to eat the food there or drink the way that, everyone else is drinking. But you have to find your sacrifice to your freedom. If you're happy and you want to have a bit of festivities at Christmas, then please do not expect to get the same amount of fat loss as if you were dieting the whole of December. But that's okay. You just have to be, again, transparent with your coach as well. That's tagging on the side of the coach. Be transparent with your coach about what you want to get from December. If you want to have some freedom over the festivities, then that's great. We can plan for that. But alternatively to that, if you want fat loss during December, then you're going to have some sacrifices that other people around you are not going to be doing. So also they're just coming to terms with that as well. Everyone else is going to be tucking into that box of celebrations, and you're just going to have to put the wrappers in the bin for them.
Ooh, I like that one. This has come back a lot to what we spoke about in episode 99, in that you got to define what you actually want from this. Yeah. And if you want to stay lean year round, if you want to be able to maintain your body weight, which I think you don't need to chase fat loss in December, but if you just want to maintain your body weight, you just got to be sensible, which is why I said, like, do we actually need a Christmas strategy, or do you just need to be conscious and sensible during these events and not use December as a complete write-off and think, I'll come back to it in January? Like if you want a lifestyle solution that works year round for you, you can't just take certain months off. There's no on and off switch. You've got to be able to maintain your behaviors, your mindset, and the way you approach events and social occasions with a lean approach.
So what you're saying is you basically got to create a new identity of who you are over these occasions and periods, and not accept that you are the old version of yourself. You are the new and upgraded version of whoever you are, and you expect more from yourself. Exactly.
If you've lost 20 kilos and you've gone from 90 kilos to 70 kilos, you can't suddenly put the 90 kilo hat back on in December and expect to stay at 70 kilos. You're gonna feel disappointed when you wake up on January the 1st. And I think that's the difference between a change and a transformation, in that you've got to really be able to lock in that new identity and live with it during that Christmas period.
If you watch it, the Christmas festivities, watch the skinny woman that's about 50 kilos that has stayed 50 kilos for the last 20 years. She's having one main meal. She's probably leaving half of it. She probably hasn't ate much for the rest of the day. She's having a few drinks, and she's probably having half a dessert or a dessert. That's an identity of a skinny 50-year-old or 50 kilo woman. Not the 100 kilo, 20 pints, 4 apple turnovers, 6 mince pies, and a partridge in a pear tree. It's effectively that you need to identify and act like the person you want to be, not the person you are or the people that you're around. Because that's the big thing. It's the environment, right? If let's say, I give an example. Most of my family, God bless them if they're listening to this, but all of them are over 95 kilos. Everyone has they never had one main meal in their lives at Christmas. It's always 3 or 4 plates, a cheese board, 3 or 4 desserts. There's a trifle on the table, chocolate cake, and they're going at it like it's like a watering pond in the safari. But if you want to identify yourself as that person, then that's cool. You can do that. Just know that that's not going to lead to that skinny Nathan or that lean Nathan being there for long.
Yeah, I think if you're someone who's feeling stressed about the whole month, and you're starting to think, I've got 15 socials, I've got 17 socials, and creating so much anticipation around it, you're probably going to fail, because all you're going to be thinking about is how you're going to buffer around this, or how you're going to fast around this event, how you're going to navigate around this, when really you should just be attending each one. And if you act in the way Nathan just mentioned, and just be sensible about your portion control and enjoy the time of the year that for what it is, you'll come out with it. You come out of the other end in exactly the same place, and probably even better, because you'll be less stressed, having probably gone through a period of quieter work, more enjoyment with your social and in your social life and with your family.
I think it's important to remember what these festivities are about as well. I think the big one, when we just had Diwali passed, I said to one of my clients, I was like, if you take away the food from these festivities, you still have a celebration. But if you take away the friends and families, you're just with food and there's nothing at all. And I'll leave it at that.
That's a quality quote.
That's so true. I mean, like, Diwali's been, I know Diwali's passed, but it's always been built up as a big food fest. Everyone gets together, cooks loads of sweets, and it's all about when this person sits down to eat, when that person sits down to eat, what sweets you're going to have when. But if you take all of it away, the family is still going to get together. You're still going to meet your friends. Nothing really changes. And the same with Christmas. You'll probably still meet up on Christmas Day. You just want to have a turkey and all the stuffing around it.
Precisely. And that's what these festivities are all about, right? The core is food, and the core is food and drink. But at the end of the day, like, you are actually meeting up to have a celebration with family and friends. Nothing more than that.
Yeah, but for some people, and then the sad fact is, it becomes a form of escape, right? And it becomes a clutch. The food and drink becomes a clutch in these situations. And all these social events and the Christmas indulgences ends up being a form of escape to temporarily get away from everything else that's gone on in the year.
I think if this is your first Christmas, like let's say you've reached a transformation checkpoint and this is your first time doing this, and this is your first Christmas or your first Diwali being this person who has now come through a transformation, I think you have to mentally set yourself up for that and psychologically prepare, because you are going in with a different identity and you are going to be faced with those triggers, and you're going to be within an environment where you would have gone into those old habits that you had. So you need to be mentally aware of that before you go in. And be prepared to, it is going to be difficult, and it is going to, you have to practice different choices, and that's going to require some willpower.
Yeah, and something that me and AB spoke about in Kenya was like, if you're coming up to a consolidation phase or you're in a lifestyle solution phase, this is probably the first time that you've had to deal with Christmas in this new identity. And every single event is completely different. You know, if you handled your birthday well, okay, well, good, well, congratulations on that. But Christmas is a whole different beast. So if you're in that consolidation phase and you're in that lifestyle solution phase, you have to practice your new identity this time. Because without it being this time, you have to wait another 365 years to practice Christmas next time. And we know from the identity of behavior about coupling. And coupling is when you attach an environment to an identity and you can be able to repeat it over and over again. Your birthday, or because you withstand the donuts on Tuesday at work, doesn't mean that Christmas is going to be good for you. So practice what you preach, and effectively, and how you want to identify next Christmas. It's not about this Christmas, it's about the next 20, 25, 30 Christmases, so that every single time you don't come to January and you end up being 10 kilos heavier. Practice it this year so that next year you don't have to tell yourself the same thing, that you're going to be good over Christmas or that you have to diet again.
And that's why an investment phase should be a minimum of 12 months, right? Because you need the annual cycle. You need the annual cycle to learn the different lifestyle solutions that come along the way.
It's minimum 12 months, because you have to practice every single event throughout the year once. Periods of high stress, periods of high work, periods of shifting priorities, shifting of celebrations. They all are different, and they all require different strategies, solutions, and you practicing those strategies and solutions. You can read as much as you want in books, you can read as much as you want on articles, but at the end of the day, is if you don't put in play the identity that you want, then it's never, ever going to be formed. And you could think that you're going to do that. You could write in your journal every single day, I'm going to be this, but unless you action it, it means fuck all. Amen.
So let's say you haven't quite yet adopted this identity yet. You know, you're going into the Christmas, you're still spinning your wheels, you're still in that old identity, you're still in that boat, the old boat, and you're looking ahead to January. You're thinking, I'm going to start this journey in January. I'm going to start the 2020s correctly. I'm going to finally transform my body. What do you need to expect? What should you be expecting that's coming to you? And what do you need to be ready for if you want to transform your body heading into the new decade?
The first thing is that you have to be valuable with your system structure and strategies. Is that you have to be, you're going to change the way that you do things on a week-to-week basis. You change your processes, and you're going to look at how to optimize those for that specific goal.
I'd say really just for all of that to be possible is just being open to change. Being willing to listen to your coach and make changes to your life. Expecting to be able to live exactly the same lifestyle, but it to result in a different result. I think that's like a misquoted Einstein quote, but it's that's like the definition of madness: repeating the same thing and expecting a different result. So being open to changing things, changing your lifestyle, because if you're not where you want to be, what you've been doing isn't working. And so you need to be open to making those changes.
And then tagging on from that, once you're open to change and you're ready, you actually have to go on and take that action and get a coach who's going to help you on your journey and get you to where you want to be.
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately, if you're thinking about 2020 and you're thinking what you need to do, there's three. It comes down to three key C's. You need to be coachable. You need to be thinking with a consistent mindset, and you need to have commitments to yourself.
On each one of those. In that commitment, obviously, you've got 3 levels of accountability. You've got peer accountability. So people around you, whether it's your family members, letting them know what you're about to go through. And especially during the Christmas period, it'd be good to chat to them about what your goals are for 2020. Then you've got your self accountability. So, your reasons why behind your why you're doing things. And, whether it's journaling or looking at deep into why you actually want to achieve this goal, just more so than just, I want to lose 20 kilos. And then you've got coach accountability, which is when you have someone else who you're accountable to, who's going to effectively take you on this journey because they are the experts in that field.
And if you're going to have coach accountability, you need to be coachable. And being coachable comes down to a number of different things. And from my perspective, and I'm sure you guys all have your own opinions here, but for me, it's the willingness to learn. It's the willingness to take action from what your coach tells you. And most importantly, if you have a coach, it's your ability to check in consistently with the right information on time and with everything your coach needs in order to be able to facilitate your transformation that's coming your way.
Yeah, I think to build on that, actually, like from a coach, what I personally love to see from a client, the three qualities that I like is again building off someone who's ready to be coached, someone who's ready to put the hard work in. Because we can't do that for you. You need to put the hard work in. And then someone who's transparent as well. There may be slip-ups along the way, but we need to know about that. You need to tell us that within your check-in. And then someone we're going to map this journey out for you, and it's going to be a few months. So I want you to be consistent as well. So if you are hardworking, transparent, and consistent, you're going to be an ideal client. And we're going to get you that transformation.
And speaking of consistency, one thing that really needs to be, if you're heading into 2020 and you've not quite received the results in the past, the big mindset shift you have to have, instead of thinking about change, you got to start thinking about transformation. Instead of thinking about 12-week plans, you got to start thinking in 12-month journey cycles. And I think that if you can make that mindset shift and start thinking long-term, you're going to be able to experience the changes in identity, behavior patterns, mindset, all the things that we've discussed that facilitate a lifestyle solution. That's how you get it. And that's how you allow yourself to get into the shape of your life for life.
The plans that are 12 weeks only are dead. They're finished. No one wants a transformation without the lifestyle solution, but equally you can't get the lifestyle solution without the initial change and the initial non-negotiables and things that come with the transformation. So, don't look for those 12-week plans, those things that are just short in nature. At the end of the day, is that you're giving yourself a disservice because you're putting yourself in a position where you're simply, lean, or you're going to be in the shape of your life, but then you're not going to know what to do next. And that's where the consolidation phase comes in. How many people fail a diet because they get to where they kind of lose 10 kilos and then they put it all back on. It isn't the losing of the weight that's the issue. Congratulations. If you've done a transformation, you've done a really good feat, but actually that was just the prep for the real game, which is life. And really just going into that lifestyle solution and that consolidation phase.
There's so many 12-week diet plans. There's so many different diet books, fitness books, but none of them talk about what's coming next. The easy bit, like you said, is getting into shape. Anyone can do that. Anyone can lose 10 kilos, but can you keep it off? You have the strategies in place to keep it off. And I think that's where the real skill is. And that's where we're focusing all our energy on. That's also what the book's going to be about. So stay tuned.
Yeah. If you're looking for a quick fix, don't come to RNT.
I think to build on top of that as well, it's like the willingness to just go all in. Like I can't think of anything that I've ever done where I've been like, oh yeah, I'm just going to give this 70 to 80% of my effort. And I feel like a lot of people that I've experienced in the past, they are only willing to give so much. But when you come with a willingness to go 100% all in, that's where you're really going to see the results come through.
Brilliant. On that note, let's go around the room and give one tip for anyone who's looking to transform in 2020.
Just to build on top of that even further, if it is taking you 25 to 30 years to get to where you are, you cannot expect a lifestyle change within 12 weeks. Okay, so just put that into perspective before you take on another 12-week program, and don't look at your whole transformation as a huge lifestyle solution.
How much is the flexibility ebook, Ivan? $199.
199 DM me.
I've just ordered it, by the way.
DM Ivan.
I'm waiting for that email, Ivan.
Emily.
Really, it's about just like being prepared as well, like having everything set, knowing what's coming and how you're going to get to it is going to be one of the best factors to help you get what you were really chasing.
I think just identifying your why before you get going. And it's not going to be, just get abs. If it comes up to something like that, ask yourself why again. Keep asking why until you get to the real reason you want to transform your life. And then once you get there, have a think about it, write it down, because you're going to need that when the going gets tough or when you're having to make changes. That's what's going to keep you going and keep you on track with the changes that you're making.
Mulla.
Focus on the small daily tasks that you have to do to lead you on a road to success for your transformation and beyond.
That one was big, actually. I think just actually being very clear on where you're going as well. So over the process, you're going to ebb and flow with willpower. So being very clear about the sacrifice level that you're willing to make from day one, and then working with your coach to actually map that out over a journey is going to be huge.
Be prepared for the physical journey being the vehicle for the mental and all other aspects. You're going to see a lot of things change when you get your 3 S's, when you get some accountability and you change that identity. A lot of other relationships and a lot of other aspects of your life will be there for an opening and change based on just the physical being that vehicle.
And for those of you who want to transform in 2020, Pooja, drop the mic on the final point here.
Leave your ego at the door.
Perfect.
Told you we had Westwood in the building today.
I'm not sure if I should elaborate. I'm happy to. Yeah, basically that. Be a blank canvas, no skepticism. You're amongst people that are educated, trained, and have experience to look after you, regardless of ethnicity, lifestyle. They will only understand your lifestyle if you explain it to them. So, for example, as a British, Asian, vegetarian, no eggs, very devout, faith-orientated woman, my coach hasn't lived my life, yet can still coach me to 20 plus kilos down in a year.
Big up the white boys that know about Diwali.
Thank you.
How many calories are in a roti?
You know,
too many.
All of them.
And on that note, guys, have a great festive period and Merry Christmas in advance. Thank you so much for being here today on this episode of RNT Fitness Radio. I'd love for you to do a quick little favor for us. Please head over to iTunes and give us a 5-star rating, leave a comment, and share it with your family and friends. If you're interested in learning more about how to transform your body and positively change your life, go to www.rntfitness.com and explore all our free content on offer. Thank you.